No, I had no contact, no connection at all to the communist movement. My father was a Republican, my mother was a Democrat. They were both from small towns in the south of the United States. So I had no left background at all. Um, I When I was in college and in graduate school in the 1960s, I did get involved in the anti-war movement, the movement to protest the American invasion and attack in Vietnam. And I heard from a gentleman while I was watching a an anti-war demonstration that it was wrong to um, oppose the American war in Vietnam because the National Liberation Front of South Vietnam, he said, was led by the Communist Party of Vietnam. The Communist Party of Vietnam was led by Ho Chi Minh. Ho Chi Minh had been trained by Stalin, and Stalin had killed 20 million people. That's what he said. So I didn't believe it or disbelieve it, but I decided at some point or other I would look into this. When I had time with my studies and finishing my doctoral degree and getting a job and those kinds of things. About 1970 or so, I read the book by Robert Conquest, which is titled The Great Terror, Stalin's Purge of the 30s. Now, I didn't know anything about Robert Conquest at that time. Since then, of course, I've learned, a lot about him, including the fact that he was worked for the British intelligence and was a professional anti-communist, pseudo scholarly writer. But I didn't know that at the time. So I read that book. It's a very long book, and it's full of one horror story after another, accusing Stalin of all kinds of crimes and murders, and it's really very horrifying. If anyone who read that book and just naively believed what Conquest said, would certainly never consider being on the left. So anyway, I decided that when I had time, uh, I would like to check Conquest's claims. So in the early to mid 1970s, after I'd gotten my job and had done a lot of work on my doctoral dissertation, I traveled into New York City, which is close by here, to use the New York Public Library, which has a very good Slavic collection. And I went in there many times, and I took along references to Conquest footnotes to check them. And what I found out, to make a long story short, over this long period of time, many visits, was that Conquest had no evidence to support the accusations he made against Stalin and the Soviet leadership and the Soviet Union generally. He had no evidence. All he did was quote other books that said the same thing, other books that made those same statements. But of course, that's not evidence, right? If writer A makes a claim and his only evidence is that writer B also made the same claim, then that's not evidence. You need something a lot more than that. So I knew that because, of course, I had been studying historical literature, and I knew what evidence was, and Conquest didn't have any. So I decided that at some point or other I would like to do some research on the Stalin period because this had my interest stimulated, and I did. I wrote an article over a number of years on the military purges, the so-called Tukhachevsky affair, and eventually got it published. It was not easy to get it published, but I did manage it. When the internet came along, I retyped that article and put it on my webpage. And I was then, a few years later, I was contacted by a wonderful guy named Vladimir Bobrov in Moscow, who is an amateur historian. And he said, your article is very good, but there are many documents which are now coming out of the former Soviet archives, because he contacted me in 1999, and of course the Soviet Union had come to an end. And documents from the former Soviet archives had begun to be published. And so he said, well, you should really study these things. Let's work together. And and after that, that's really what I have decided to do, to make, uh, to make my life's work in research, to stop doing research on medieval literature, which had been my specialty, and to do research on the Soviet history, because I was fascinated by uh, the degree of lying that about Soviet history and about Stalin that could now be proven to be false.